Yes, it's the Clark Gables, just in from the coast. Charming Carole Lombard and friend husband get a mighty welcome.
Carole Lombard was Hollywood royalty, a dazzling star whose wit, charm, and unparalleled beauty made her one of the brightest lights of the 1930s. Known for her screwball comedies and her magnetic screen presence, she captivated audiences and critics alike. But behind the laughter and glamour was a story that Hollywood never fully told, one filled with mystery, tragedy, and questions that have haunted fans for decades. For years, rumors swirled about Lombard's sudden death in 1942. A tragic plane crash claimed her life at just 33 years old, cutting short a career that had only just begun to soar. Yet even today, details about that fateful flight remain clouded by speculation. Some whispered of mismanagement by the airline. Others suggested bad weather or pilot error. A few even hinted at far darker forces at play. The truth, as it turns out, is far more compelling and heartbreaking than anyone realized. Newly uncovered accounts from eyewitnesses, historical documents, and personal letters paint a picture of Lombard's final days that is both vivid and haunting. They reveal her unwavering dedication to the war effort, her love for her husband, Clark Gable, and the circumstances that led her to board that ill-fated plane. For the first time, we can see the choices she made, the risks she took, and the courage she displayed in the face of danger. The story is not just about a tragic accident. It's about a woman whose life embodied brilliance, resilience, and generosity, and whose death became an enduring Hollywood legend. Today, we finally separate fact from myth, uncover the truths that have been hidden for decades, and honor Carole Lombard as more than just a casualty of tragedy. She was a woman who lived fully, loved deeply, and left a legacy that continues to inspire. Carole Lombard was not born into fame. Born Jane Alice Peters on October 6, 1908, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, she grew up far from the glamour of Hollywood. Yet even as a child, she displayed a spark that would later define her career: and infectious energy, a quick wit, and an uncanny ability to captivate everyone around her. By her teens, she was drawn to the world of entertainment, landing small modeling jobs and minor roles in silent films. Her early Hollywood years were a mix of struggle and determination. Studios came and went, roles were inconsistent, and the competition was fierce. But Lombard had something few others possessed: an innate charm that radiated both on and off the screen. By the late 1920s, she had caught the attention of Paramount Pictures, which gave her opportunities that few aspiring actors ever received. Her timing couldn't have been more perfect. The film industry was evolving rapidly from silent films to talkies, and audiences were hungry for stars who could bring both personality and authenticity to the screen. It was during this period that Lombard discovered her true niche: comedy. Though she could act in drama, it was her performance in screwball comedies that would cement her legacy. Films like 20th Century and My Man Godfrey showcased her rapid-fire delivery, impeccable timing, and fearless physicality. She wasn't just playing a character. She was performing an extension of herself: charming, intelligent, and independent. Fans adored her, critics praised her, and Hollywood producers realized they had a rare gem in their midst. By the 1930s, Lombard's star was rising at an unprecedented pace. She became one of the highest-paid actresses of her time, known not just for her talent but for her professionalism. She approached every role with meticulous preparation, balancing humor with a nuanced understanding of character. Behind the scenes, she was respected by directors, adored by co-stars, and revered by fans. Yet, despite her success, she remained grounded. Friends described her as warm, generous, and fiercely loyal, a woman who never let fame erode her humanity. Her personal life, however, was far from simple. Lombard's charm and beauty attracted attention from some of Hollywood's biggest names, including Clark Gable, whom she would eventually marry. Their relationship was intense and passionate, capturing the public's imagination. Yet, even amidst the romance, Lombard's career and ambitions remained central. She refused to be merely a companion to a famous actor. She demanded recognition for her own achievements, and she earned it. As her fame grew, so did her influence. She was not content to simply perform. She became an advocate for causes she believed in, particularly during the early years of World War II. Lombard used her platform to support war bonds, encourage enlistment, and inspire patriotic sentiment. It was this courage, combined with her unstoppable energy, that made her both a beloved public figure and a private hero. By the time she boarded her final flight in January 1942, Lombard had already left an indelible mark on Hollywood. She had redefined comedy, influenced a generation of actors, and inspired millions of fans. But her story was far from over. The circumstances of that fateful flight and the mystery that surrounded it would eclipse her career. In the public imagination for decades. By the late 1930s, Carole Lombard had become one of Hollywood's most luminous stars, admired not only for her comedic genius but for her elegance, charm, and fierce independence. Yet behind the silver screen and the bright lights, Lombard's personal life was a whirlwind of passion, love, and ambition. The most significant chapter of that life was her romance with Clark Gable, a story that captivated the public and would ultimately intertwine with the tragic events of her final days. Lombard and Gable's relationship began with an undeniable spark. Both were powerful personalities, equally talented and fiercely ambitious, yet deeply attracted to one another. Their connection was electric, blending mutual respect with an almost magnetic chemistry. Gable, already an established star, admired Lombard's energy, wit, and intelligence. She, in turn, found in him a kindred spirit, someone who understood the pressures and demands of Hollywood fame. Their courtship was fast, intense, and widely covered by the media. Yet Lombard's charm ensured that she maintained her individuality, even as the world watched every step. In 1939, after several high-profile relationships and brief marriages, Lombard and Gable wed in a private ceremony, intentionally keeping it low-key to avoid the intense media scrutiny. The union was a happy one, filled with genuine affection, shared laughter, and mutual support for each other's careers. They balanced Hollywood life with moments of normalcy, retreating to their home away from the cameras whenever possible. Lombard, in particular, relished the opportunity to step away from the public eye and focus on personal matters, including her deepening interest in humanitarian efforts and her commitment to supporting the country during a time of war. As the United States edged closer to involvement in World War II, Lombard became increasingly active in promoting war bonds and rallying public support for the troops. Her patriotic efforts were tireless. She traveled extensively, attending events and speaking publicly, all while maintaining her demanding acting schedule. It was during one such trip, in early January 1942, that fate would deliver a cruel twist. Lombard had been returning from a successful war bond tour in the Midwest. She had personally encouraged thousands to purchase bonds, using her celebrity to bolster the country's morale and contribute to the war effort. Determined to maximize her efforts, she insisted on taking a small commercial flight back to Los Angeles, even as weather conditions deteriorated. Her energy, determination, and sense of duty left no room for delay. She wanted to continue her work and be with Gable. As soon as possible, on January 16, 1942, Lombard boarded TWA Flight 3. The weather was poor, with heavy snow and reduced visibility, but Lombard, ever fearless, pressed on. She chatted with passengers and crew, radiant and engaging as always, unaware that this would be her final journey. Shortly after takeoff, the plane tragically crashed into Potosi Mountain near Las Vegas, killing all aboard. Lombard was just 33 years old. The crash shocked Hollywood and the world. Fans mourned, colleagues wept, and headlines screamed with disbelief. Yet the circumstances of the crash were shrouded in uncertainty. Initial reports cited poor weather and pilot error, but inconsistencies in the investigation, rumors of mechanical failure, and the sheer suddenness of the tragedy left questions unanswered. How could such a vibrant, spirited woman, so full of life, be taken in an instant? Why had she chosen that flight despite the warnings? The morning of January 16, 1942, began like any other for Carole Lombard, yet it would end in a tragedy that shocked Hollywood and the entire nation. The small TWA flight carrying Lombard and other passengers departed Las Vegas, en route to Los Angeles amid treacherous winter weather. Thick snow, icy winds, and poor visibility made conditions extremely hazardous, but Lombard, ever devoted to her patriotic mission, insisted on continuing the trip. Her sense of duty, her determination, and her refusal to delay for fear or inconvenience would tragically seal her fate. Shortly after takeoff, the plane collided with Potosi Mountain. The crash was immediate and catastrophic. All aboard were killed. News of Lombard's death spread like wildfire, leaving fans, colleagues, and the press in shock. The Hollywood community was devastated. Studios issued statements of mourning. Fellow actors recalled her vivacity and warmth. And Clark Gable was inconsolable, plunged into grief that would mark the rest of his life. For the world, the death of Carole Lombard was more than a news story. It was the sudden extinguishing of one of Hollywood's brightest lights. From the outset, the tragedy was shrouded in mystery. Early reports attributed the crash to pilot error exacerbated by poor weather. Some claimed mechanical failure, others speculated navigational mistakes. Rumors began to circulate almost immediately, fueled by the unusual circumstances and the intense public fascination with Lombard. Whispers suggested that perhaps the plane was sabotaged or that a delay might have saved her life. Even Hollywood insiders weighed in, some implying that Lombard had been reckless by insisting on the flight herself. Newspapers printed conflicting accounts, and Hollywood gossip amplified the uncertainty. Headlines emphasized dramatic speculation. Lombard lost in terrible crash. Pilot error blamed in star's death. Heroine of the war effort dies in tragic accident. Readers were left with an incomplete, sensationalized story, unable to separate fact from rumor. For decades, these inconsistencies would fuel conspiracy theories and personal interpretations, turning Lombard's death into a legend as much as a tragedy. Among the earliest controversies was the question of responsibility. Was the crash truly unavoidable, a result of weather and terrain? Or had human error, oversight, or miscommunication played a role? Aviation experts examined the case repeatedly, but the evidence remained inconclusive. Some claimed the pilot, William T. Walters, had been inexperienced in mountain flying under such conditions. Others argued that pressures to adhere to schedules and Lombard's own urgency to return home contributed indirectly to the disaster. Even within Hollywood, the rumors were impossible to ignore. Some suggested that Lombard had been cursed by ill-wishing rivals, or that her untimely death was tied to jealousy, though these claims were baseless. Clark Gable, already mourning privately, faced the impossible task of separating fact from fiction amid relentless public scrutiny. Meanwhile, fans and journalists alike attempted to reconstruct her final hours, piecing together fragments of evidence, eyewitness accounts, and government records to understand what truly happened. Despite the cloud of speculation, one fact remained indisputable. Carole Lombard had died heroically, in the service of a greater cause. Her commitment to the war effort had led her to take that final flight, and her courage in the face of personal risk defined her character as clearly as her performances on screen. It was this blend of bravery, selflessness, and charisma that cemented her legacy. Even as rumors and unanswered questions persisted, the tragic death of Carole Lombard sent shockwaves through Hollywood, the nation, and the lives of those closest to her. While grief dominated the immediate aftermath, attention quickly shifted to the investigation, as authorities sought to determine exactly what had caused the catastrophic crash that claimed the star's life. For decades, the story would be shrouded in mystery, speculation, and conflicting reports, but careful examination of records, eyewitness accounts, and newly uncovered documents finally sheds light on what truly happened. Immediately following the crash, the Civil Aeronautics Authority launched an investigation into the accident. Early reports cited poor weather, snow-covered terrain, and low visibility as primary factors. The mountainous route between Las Vegas and Los Angeles was notoriously treacherous, and pilots were often forced to rely on outdated instruments in severe conditions. Yet the investigation also noted pilot error as a contributing factor. William T. Walters, though experienced, had limited training in navigating the Potosi Mountain corridor during winter storms. A combination of human misjudgment and natural hazards had proven fatal. Rumors persisted for decades that Lombard herself had made a reckless decision by insisting on that flight. While it's true that her determination to return quickly played a role in timing, investigations confirm that the plane would likely have encountered peril. Regardless of who was aboard, weather reports, communications logs, and meteorological studies of that day indicate that TWA Flight 3 was operating under extraordinarily dangerous conditions, leaving little room for safe navigation. The narrative of careless celebrity has long been exaggerated. The reality underscores her bravery and sense of duty. Over the years, sensationalist accounts added layers of myth to the tragedy. Some suggested sabotage or foul play. Others implied conspiracy theories linked to Hollywood rivals. These claims were fueled by inconsistent reporting, the secrecy of wartime travel, and Lombard's status as one of the most beloved public figures of her time. Yet thorough investigations and the declassification of official documents confirm no evidence of foul play. The crash was a tragic accident, born of natural hazards, human limitations, and unfortunate timing. Clark Gable, devastated by the loss, focused on preserving Lombard's legacy. Friends and family worked tirelessly to correct the misinformation circulating in the press, ensuring that the narrative emphasized her courage, charm, and contributions, particularly her wartime efforts. By publicly honoring her work and her heroism, they gradually shifted the conversation from scandal and speculation to remembrance and respect. Modern historians and aviation experts continue to study the crash, reinforcing the conclusions that had long been obscured by rumor. Lombard's death was a combination of unavoidable risk and unfortunate circumstance, not negligence, sabotage, or conspiracy. Her final journey was motivated by patriotism, not personal recklessness. It was a testament to her dedication, her courage, and her commitment to causes larger than herself. Today, Carole Lombard is remembered not only as a dazzling Hollywood icon, but also as a woman of remarkable bravery and integrity. The myths that once clouded her story have been clarified by evidence, ensuring that her legacy is defined by truth rather than rumor. Her films remain timeless, her influence on comedy enduring, and her memory revered by generations who admire her talent, spirit, and unwavering courage. The story of Carole Lombard reminds us of the fragility of life, the dangers of speculation, and the importance of honoring facts over sensationalism. Her final flight was tragic, yes, but it was also a reflection of the extraordinary woman she was: fearless, devoted, and unforgettable. As decades pass, the world finally knows what truly happened that fateful day in January 1942. And her story stands as both a cautionary tale and a celebration of a life lived fully, brilliantly, and courageously.